here from DC West, and I love him dearly, but he was a nobody. He didn't fit in anywhere. It was a small town school. He's not into sports. He got all types of scholarships from Norfolk Public Schools, from the college, from everywhere. He just wrapped up his first year of college saying, Mom, moving to Norfolk was the best damn thing we've ever done. And up until this very last point, I completely agreed with him. Chris and I have 6 children between the two of us, and all 6 of our children have thrived, have grown, have expanded, have really become who they want to be because of Norfolk. And for that, we are so grateful. It was just this one moment, a very pivotal time in our lives that we felt that we were so let down. Suicide is never reported on the news. It's never blown up in social media. If somebody passes away from suicide, you usually hear it from a family member, don't you? It's not broadcasted on News Channel Nebraska. It's not broadcasted on Fox News. It is a very personal and private time for families to heal. Because it's not like another accident. I'm saying a loss is a loss, yes. But when something tragic happens, God forbid an accident of some sort, you know the outcome. You get that report, we're sorry, but your child's no longer with us. But when your son or your daughter commits suicide, you know the first thing you think of? What did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? Where did I fail my child? And that is the worst grief that anybody can ever experience. And then to get a phone call less than 24 hours later.
With no warning. None. We had no idea the phone call was coming.
And all of a sudden it's, hello Norfolk, or this is Norfolk Public Schools, an important announcement. We're letting you know that a fellow freshman student, Hunter Cram, committed suicide. Again, that is a personal family situation. That is something that, again, we don't have family here. So most of our family is being told.
Thank you, Chris and Jenny. We will be following up with you. We've had communication, and we will be back in touch. And we all express our sympathies. Would anyone else like to speak about the parental involvement policy?
Hello, let me put my glasses on here. My name is Margot Chenoweth, and I reside at 301 South Eastwood Street in Norfolk, Nebraska. First, let me say that I was just really deeply touched by those parents, and I'll try to get through this the best I can. Nothing could be more horrible. I'm going to address the requirement for parental involvement as stated in Legislative Bill number 1161, which was enacted in 1994. It provides for extensive parental involvement and requires the school boards of Nebraska to make provision for such. I'm going to ask you to take a look at how parents were not involved in the most recent purchase of curriculum. A parent was told that the books on display for parents to view at the school board meeting could not leave the building. He was advised that they had already been purchased. Clearly, there is insufficient time for a parent to read through a single textbook before a school board meeting, let alone multiple books, but he was able to take a photo of the table of contents of some of the books. In doing so, he saw extra reading recommended or required by the curriculum. As he could not read the actual textbooks at that time, he asked when he might view them in depth. He was told he would have to make an appointment at the administration office during business hours. This would have necessitated his taking time off work and was nearly impossible for him and indeed for most other parents. Since he could not examine the textbooks in any meaningful way, he decided to go to the public library and check out the recommended or required reading. What he found was appalling, to say the least. These books did present critical race theory and inappropriate sexual content. This parent read aloud some of the text at the school board candidate forum last fall within our hearing, so I know for a fact that this happened. No member of the then school board could refute his claims. Superintendent Jamie Jo Thompson stated she knew nothing about it and further told this parent that it was not necessary to include parents in this decision and that parents needed to trust the person making decisions about the curriculum and textbooks. This is unacceptable when one considers what is actually being put forward in so many of these books, whether the actual textbooks or in the recommended or required reading. These are the very valid concerns of Norfolk's parents and grandparents. We have no input into the choosing of appropriate curricula for our children. Our thinking is not sought out, nor is it considered if offered. Before thousands of dollars are spent to buy books to put into the hands of our children, books that are to be used for 6 years before new ones can be purchased. Lots of damage can be done in 6 years, folks. In the 6 years, a child goes from first grade to middle school. In another 6 years, that child will likely have graduated high school. His thought process is probably heavily influenced by un-American ideas like critical race theory, which teaches our students that if you are Caucasian, you are an oppressor, and if not, you are a perpetual victim, doomed to failure by a society dedicated to preserving white privilege. Sexual mores are also torn down by the books on the reading list by advocating methods for safe ways to have different kinds of sex without regard for any moral considerations whatsoever. Now, these teachings are okay with some, but I can guarantee you that the vast majority of Norfolk parents do not think that, and that is not why they send their children to school. They send their children to school to learn to read, write, do mathematics, to learn our real history, to learn where other places in the world are, and something about their geopolitical and cultural issues, to learn about the sciences, and hopefully to become interested in their own futures. They send their children to school to learn to work and play effectively with others, and to function in a free society as responsible and strong adults. It is therefore incumbent upon this school board to endeavor with all its might to become receptive to the values and the principles held by the citizens of Norfolk, Nebraska, and to make sure that parents and guardians have free and unfettered access to teaching materials, curricula, and textbooks. I would also like to add that I feel it is the responsibility of the superintendent and whomever has the responsibility to purchase teaching materials to have their finger on the pulse of the community in which they serve and to honor those values and principles in approving all teaching materials. I keep hearing the word trust. Trust the process, trust the professionals, trust the superintendent. Folks, trust must be earned. When we see that the values and the principles so clearly voiced by the majority of our citizens are mirrored in the board's decisions, our trust will have been earned. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot.
In the future, I would ask that if you quote me, you ensure that the quote is correct, ma'am. Would anybody else like to speak about the parental involvement policy?
Peggy Hoffman. I'm from Norfolk. Mr. Wilson has my actual address. I actually wanted to talk about the policy that's coming up in this evening's agenda about LB 575, which you're not sure how it passed, or if it's going to pass. So the committee decided not to.
Ma'am, this is only about parental involvement at
Oh,
this time.
okay.
We will have public
Okay.
comment in a little while.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we will have another
Okay,
opportunity.
well, I'll speak on parental.
Okay.
Whatever happened to parents visiting schools? Why has that stopped being a thing? I don't understand, if you make an appointment and you want to visit a class for 15 or 20 minutes, it used to be kind of fun, especially for the younger kids. Now, I'd never do that in high school. But it used to be kind of fun for them to see their mom or dad, show up and visit, just so they know they have their parents' support, not just at home, but in the classroom, where they want their children giving their teachers respect. And as far as curriculum, yeah, I have to agree with Mrs. Pospischel. It's real hard to know what's in the curriculum. Do you envision a time we might ever see that online? Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
Because this is a public hearing, I will address a couple of the questions. One, I know that Mr. Whitaker has already left, but it is not illegal for him to see his students' records, and we will make arrangements for that to happen. The second, Ms. Hoffman, we do allow parents to call the school and make arrangements to visit their child at school. They just have to make that arrangement with the building principal, so that is allowed as well. We did at one time have the goal of making our curriculum online, but we have not been able to make that happen. It is just so involved and so much information, and our website would not handle that. It's just too much for that to happen.
Dr. Thompson, is it appropriate to respond to a claim about the curriculum and the ELA curriculum, that in which in that textbook references stories, several stories, but as you have seen when we go through curriculum review, the textbooks are quite large, and there are less and less textbook companies all the time. We have teachers involved and administrative members involved in going through a vetting process that goes through all of those pieces. The stories in which were mentioned during the board, thank you, candidate forum, correct, are not used in our curriculum, and they aren't referenced in the curriculum. And so if he did do research and go read those in the library, I would imagine he found what he found, but that is not what's involved in our curriculum. I wouldn't have a teacher that would endorse that as well.
there anyone else that would like to speak about the parental involvement policy?
I was at the candidate forum, and I did hear with my own ears what was found as far as the reading and stuff went. I was told by the gentleman that that was at the prior school board meeting with the curriculum that that was what you said, and I should have said that in what I was saying. So that was secondhand, and I apologize to you. I do not like to say untrue things.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Please accept my apology.
And I have had follow-up conversations with that gentleman about the curriculum.
Thank you.
Okay. My name's Steve Jessen. I live at 4105 North 37th Street here in Norfolk, Nebraska. And I've went through the policy number 6400, and I'm looking at some of the things. I also I had contacted one of the members here on the school board trying to get some curriculum before it was voted on that night, and was unable to obtain any information on some curriculum that I had questions about, and basically was told that if we wanted the curriculum that we had to make an appointment, and that was convenient from the business hours like it's stated here in the manual and all that type of stuff, which doesn't work out for most parents or for most grandparents, which would be my case, okay? So the curriculum is not available as far as I'm concerned. And I'm looking at the parent involvement, and I have a couple of things highlighted here, and I feel like this is what's kind of happening. Item number 2 under the deal, it's basically upon reasonable advance requests, a parent will be permitted to attend and monitor courses, assemblies, counseling sessions, and other instructional activities, unless the school determines that such attendance would substantially interfere with a legitimate school interest. What I would like to know is, what would that be? That would be a legitimate school interest that you would shut a parent out from the school, which includes the child, the student, other students, and the staff. So, you know, I don't understand what those could be, for one thing. The other part is, under section 3, I don't need to read the whole thing, I guess, but you have consistent with the mission of the district, and again, the legitimate school interests. So again, you're going back to the school interest. So the school's interest is more important, is what this is telling me, than the parents. And upon request of a parent, the district will provide access to the education records of their child, consistent with applicable law. What's the applicable law? I listened to a gentleman here earlier that said he was unable to obtain those records. So the way I see this, the way this is written, the whole thing, you can go into the testing, whatever. Basically what it is that the administration of the school has the say over a parent or a grandparent of whether or not they can attend or see or participate in anything. I also read where parents are also, or grandparents or whatever, are encouraged to be involved with their children in school, and I appreciate that. However, most parents these days both parents are working. How does that work? You have to make other provisions for the parents. The only parents that I know that aren't working, you know, are disabled or whatever the circumstances may be. they're able to participate, but the working parents are not being included in decision makings in this school that I see, and that's a bothering. And these instructions, if you read some of the earlier ones, 6,300 or whatever, it lines out. And what I'm telling you is you pretty much make it known that it is the administration that gets to decide, not the parents. And I don't know when all these decisions are made on school curriculum, but I have yet ever seen where parents were invited to be part of that decision process. I've never seen it. You know, you have your committee hearings during the working hours. How in the heck do you expect parents to do that? Especially if they're both working and trying to make a living. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Steve.
A couple of questions I will respond to. You talked about what a legitimate reason would be for not allowing a parent to participate in a particular class or activity. There can be times where that can be disruptive to the learning of other students, and that would be a very legitimate reason. So we try to work with parents to find a time that is appropriate and would not interrupt the learning process. And you asked about the applicable law towards student records. Before we provide discipline records on a student, we have to go through and redact any other child's name out of those records. So if there was an altercation between two students, we have to take out the other child's name.
It's on. Here we go. All right, I'm Ken Ramsey. I live at 1102 Rose Lane here in Norfolk. I want to start off by saying thank you for everybody here and what you guys do serving the community. I know it's a very important role to be a part of this public education system. I know it's not easy being up here and hearing all these things happening. But I really wanted to come up here and mention something, you know, when it comes to transparency and letting the parents become involved in what the role is or what the policies are for that. Transparency is really important to make sure that we're building a stronger relationship and trust within, you know, the community and within the parents, right? So we don't have instances like happened, you know, in the first couple of instances, you know, speakers today, which was absolutely sad. But I guess what I see when I was looking over the documents is like the methodology of the transparency. It's more like you have to find a particular issue that you're looking for. You have to single it out. You have to submit to, you know, like, hey, where is this coming at? What you know, and try to pinpoint a particular issue and try to get approval to even have the conversation. I think that's kind of, you know, I mean, it takes a lot of time, obviously, and you have to know what you're looking for as opposed to having that curriculum, that syllabus, or whatever it is, open for the public, right? Open for the parents that they can look at it any time, you know, or like, dog ate my homework, I can just print off another document or something along those lines. And I know you just mentioned that obviously uploading something like that on a server is like next to impossible. I'm sure there's a way to maybe make upgrades or do something like that to once give comfort to a lot of the parents that are saying, hey, what are you actually learning? What's on the papers that you're reading? What are the assignments themselves? I think that's something that, you know, maybe could be addressed overall. One of my concerns was, you know, what's going on, you know, what kind of curriculum or what kind of reading material is in the library, right? So I know, and everybody's heard the stories nationwide, you know, oh, these books are having problems here, you know, sexualization of children or race baiting stuff here, that and the other, right? And so as a parent, I just want to make sure, I mean, I hear here, you know, like, hey, we don't do that here, we don't do that here. Well, you know, I'd like to make sure that that's not the case. I did end up finding a catalog website, which was really nice, and I was able to go look up some of the books. And for the record, NPS, from what I was able to find out, actually has less sexualized books than like even Pierce, from what I was able to see. So that kind of surprised me in general. But there is still some on there that is just like, hey, very questionable. Like, I don't know if our children should be reading these kind of documents, if it's inappropriate, if it's sexualized, if it's, whether it's the pictures, whether it's the text, kind of things like that. So that's something that I want to make sure is transparent and is open. Like, hey, these are books that we have in our libraries that, are controversial, something like that, and put it out in the open and easy to be able to, so people can look at, read, make a comment on, as opposed to we have to go find it, we got to go search kind of things. Because what's happening, that conversation's going to be had. You want to be as open and as transparent, I think, with the parents as possible. So, that's really, when it comes to the curriculum and that, I know that there's other policies when it comes to, dress codes or flyer content that I was able to find on the handbook, the student handbook and stuff. I know those are kind of coming down the corner. I know there's no religious or political postings, things like that. Nothing that's, obscene or sexualized in that form or fashion either. But I know if you're going to post something for a group or either athletic event or a group or something like that that you have, or a club within the school, that they have to get that approved, stuff like that. And I know that there's groups like the GSA, was it like the Gay Straight Alliance, things like that. And so I'm not sure where that crosses a line of like where it's sexually, conversations, what kind of curriculum, what kind of things are going on in those clubs. When does the parent have access or is allowed to probe that in an appropriate manner, right? So that was something I wanted to bring up. Along with like Mission Mondays, I've heard that's a thing. And I don't know if there's a policy or if there's a curriculum that happens with that. And how does the parent find out what kind of conversations are happening in those instances? So, so as I said, those ones, transparency and how we can access that is kind of important to us. When it comes to a lot of stuff coming down the line, obviously I obviously support, the multicultural education, things like that. But as this is going to branch off and it has just those high, those issues that really can come in when it comes to like, hey, critical race theory or some sort of like, sneak it in through like DEI or social emotional learning, and those things can really condition and open that door for what parents really do worry about, like, the trans sexualization conditions and like, hey, what do you identify, all these different things, or, different CRT, just to allow that in there. And I know, as I said, I know there's people here that like, no, we don't do that here, we don't do that here. And that's fine, that's absolutely what I want to hear, but I just want to be able to back that up as a parent, to be able to look for that information. We see, I know that there's like, NPS has like, they have unions or whatever they have for their teachers and things like that. I know they go through maybe the Norfolk City Education Association is a part of the Norfolk Public Schools, if I'm not misunderstanding, and they, I'm sure, have information that they get from like the Nebraska State Education Association, and then in turn they're getting information and marching orders, if you will, from the NEA, or the National Education Association, which actually endorses CRT. So I want to make sure that we're autonomous from that we don't have that, and I want to find a way that we can ensure that, and that transparency is there for the parents. Say, hey, we don't do that here, and we can prove it by showing all the curriculum or what it takes. So that's just kind of the concern that I have overall. And other people touched on, we don't want to treat our kids like, hey, oppressors, oppressed, or, we want to make sure that there's no bullying involved. People go through different things, especially in their teenage years. Absolutely, identity crisis. I know I had it when I was a kid, and I know that it's important to be safe and not be bullied at school, absolutely. And to be able to treat others the way that you want to be treated, right? SEL, got rid of that. Okay, great, and then like don't judge people, or basically judge people based upon the content of their character, not the color of their skin, right? Okay, we don't need CRT anymore, right? So just basic fundamental things, and then the rest of it, just focus on academics. So if we can just find a way that the parents can have access to and know that's what's being taught in the schools without any of the other stuff that's sprinkled in here or something, just a way to be able to do that, I think that's gonna be real important. So, and when it comes to the DEI, the SEL, the CRT, all these other acronyms of sorts, those are, those are not necessarily, I don't think they're good for our public education system. We don't really want to experiment on our youth with these untested theories, because that's really all they are. Just a bunch of people kind of got to the, oh, this is great, this is great, this is great, you know, and we can watch other school districts do that. We can watch Lincoln and Omaha. We can watch places on the eastern seaboard, or, you know, in California, we say like, hey, this is clearly, you know, causing more trauma and stuff like that. That's a long-term. We want to look at long-term results before we just like, hey, let's put this in our kids and just hope, cross our fingers, hope for the best that this is going to work. That's what I think parents really fear, is that unknown, just going in there and having that pushed onto them when they're just like, hey, it doesn't seem to be working out so hot in some of these other places. So that's really all I have. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ken. I'd like to just say a quick response to that, is that as a board member here at the Norfolk Public District, I feel it's really important that we keep a lot of this stuff local, that these policies need to be addressed locally, and some of these things are being addressed on the state level, and I'm really just for keeping this on a local level and having our own parents tell us what they want and not have people throughout the state, because our area is unique, and I think we need to deal with this as a board, and whatever policies need to be worked on, we will try and do this on a local level and keep the input from the parents coming in. So parents, just keep sending us your input.
Hi, my name's Heather Wingate, and I just was not planning on speaking, but I just wanted to take a moment to actually, at a positive note, I am a teacher at the senior high, but more importantly, I'm a parent to 2 grade school students at Lincoln Montessori, and I wanted to compliment the principal and teachers at their school for their encouragement, for the participation, and the opportunities for involvement in their day-to-day school activities. At their school, parents are continuously encouraged to volunteer at the school in both daytime and evening activities that the school organizes throughout the school year. And I am a busy full-time working mom, but I do take time over my lunch break once a month to go and have lunch with my children. And there I get to see their classroom as long as I check in and go through the appropriate procedures and visit with their teachers and the principal and other staff. And I believe that the school and my children's teachers have excellent communication through multiple avenues, including Infinite Campus, Seesaw, teacher emails, and the principal emails that come out, her newsletters that come out once a month. These keep me informed on my child's day, their education, their grades, any concerns that they have, and their overall progress. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank my children's teachers and principals for their excellent communication and encouragement to be involved in their education.
Thank you, Heather.
Would anyone else like to, oh, okay.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Jeremy Stanley. I live at 309 Brentwood Drive here in Norfolk. Basically, I was going to wait till the end, but I kind of feel like I kind of need to touch base on what Mr. Ramsey was talking about, kind of the transparency on curriculum. More or less, I'm here today to voice concerns about the curriculum that is being taught in our schools for the time being, the high school in particular. In my opinion, my wife's opinion, and I'm sure a lot of other people in the community, a child should not be taking a quiz that's or taught anything about or questions regarding any inappropriate sexual content. And I've got some pictures from a quiz, an online quiz that my daughter took, and I'd like to read these questions, and if anyone needs to see these pictures, I have them available. So start off, which action encourages homophobia? Next question, which person would be most likely to identify as transgender? Next question, which is one way the media has influenced acceptance of different sexual orientations? Which term refers to people who do not experience sexual attraction to others? Which term describes the sexual orientation of a biological male who is attracted only to biological females? One second here. Which is a term that refers to people who are attracted to only people of the same sex? And which individuals I identify as LGBTQ? It said select 3 options. Due to bullying, which is the consequence more likely to occur among LGBTQ students? And then this one here, I almost found a little bit more disturbing than the first. 8-year-old Weston was molested at summer camp last year. Which effect should his parents expect as a result? The next question, which is a short-term effect of molestation? Now, to me, these questions are highly inappropriate. I mean, children should not be swayed to believe they have one sexual identity over another, especially in school. These decisions should be made, in my opinion, well into adulthood. And then pretty much kids should be educated on what it takes for them to become proper and functional members of society, not on what the proper vernacular may be for a specific person in order to keep from hurting that certain individual's feelings. Everyone is so worried about offending anyone that our children are being taught to keep their thoughts and feelings to themselves to keep from possibly offending someone. Should a child not be taught to have their own voice, their own independence, their own opinions? And if an individual's personal belief on religion is not allowed to be practiced in school, then why would we allow personal beliefs on sexual orientation or whether or not a kid wants to be a cat allowed as well? I believe as parents and educators, we should be teaching and inspiring our children for greatness, not for what the rest of the society's standards are. That's it.
Mr. Stanley, we agree with you that those questions are inappropriate. They were found within an online curriculum that we were using, and we disabled that class as soon as you brought it to our attention. So we appreciate you doing that, and we are putting a process in place to review all of the other courses within that online curriculum because those do not fit within Norfolk Public Schools approved curriculum.
I believe 100% that, parents should know that because, if I bring it to your attention and you say, okay, we've got it stopped, everything's fine, there's no issue, every parent should know that that was something that their kid could have potentially been taught. So I don't want to sweep it under the rug. I just want to let everybody know. And like Mr. Ramsey said, be as transparent as absolutely possible.
Would anyone else like to speak on the parental involvement policy? Seeing none, I would recommend that we close the hearing at this point.
Okay, we are to presentation, special recognition, and focus on the students. Dr. Robinson has her junior high students out there patiently waiting, so. Oh, you've taken them away, okay. So Dr. Robinson, junior high principal, it's called Brood Awakening with Marshawn Goebbels and students.
Hi guys, come on. Come on over here. We're gonna get them in here just a second, and then Mrs. Goebbels is gonna talk to you about what our Brood Awakening is. And we will let the students maybe introduce themselves as well. All right, we almost have everybody coming. And I could start talking about it, but I know we're gonna take away some of the things from Mrs. Goebbels' presentation. So it is not gonna be a long presentation either. So Mrs. Goebbels, do you wanna introduce or let them introduce who's with you today? They can introduce themselves. Okay, Owen, you wanna start us off? Okay, you have to speak into the microphone, okay?
Hi, I am Owen.
Hi, I am Lavona.
Hi, it's Jaco.
I am Tristan. I have a mask on.
It's okay, you can say it through your mask on. You want me to say it?
I am Kayla.
Very good. Oh, you have gloves on. I can't give you knuckles yet. All right, and this is Mrs. Goebbels, and she's going to talk to you about a special thing that was brought to us through our foundation. So, Mrs. Goebbels.
Hi, I am Mrs. Goebbels. I am a special education teacher at Norfolk Junior High. I've been in district for 20 years. I'd say the last couple years I've had this vision of starting a student-run beverage cart. And last year, I began working with these kids, and in the social skills class that we have. I was a previous ED teacher for many, many years, so I taught social skills there as well. But when I came into this position, I wanted to start something that would actually be practical and functional for them, to actually show that they are learning the social skills that we are learning. So on the next slide, I'd sent, this wouldn't be possible without the NPS Foundation helping us with a startup fund. And so some of the comments, which I know you can't see up there, but those are the comments that are from our staff. I mean, I told our students, I said, every good employee needs to know and hear back what they may need to work on or what they may not. And so those were all comments that they shared, and I wanted to share that with the foundation as well. So like I said, thank you to the foundation for that. On the next slide, why did I choose a beverage cart? Because it's helped our students with money management skills, their social skills, communication, as well as talking about personal hygiene, how you have to be clean and ready to work, and as well as improve their soft skills and employability. Most of all, I wanted a fun way for them to show off the skills that they've learned in class. So on the next slide, I'm going to have a couple of students explain kind of our process that we go through. And so, are you off? You're ready? Yeah, okay. I'm going to hand it off to Owen.
Hi, my name is Owen. I am a 7th grader at Norfolk Junior High School, a student in Mrs. Goebbels' social skills class. I'm going to tell you some of the steps we take when preparing for Delivery Day. First, Mrs. Goebbels sends out an online beverage form to all of the staff at the beginning of the week. Once orders are submitted, we write each staff's name and room number on their coffee cup sleeves or labeled according to their personalized order. The day before delivery, we prepare ice, coffee, tea, and lemonade.
Hi, my name is Tristan. I am an 8th grader at Norfolk Junior High and a second-year student in Mrs. Google's social skill class. On the day of the delivery, we prepare coffee, hot water, and ice. We work in 4 teams, either as a barista or a delivery person. Our teams alternate jobs each week. My favorite job is delivering beverages. We grade on our job performance at the end of the day based on 5 social skills areas. When we are on delivery, we are able to practice our social skills and manners with each staff member.
Our beverage cart only runs once a week, and each beverage costs $1. We keep track of all of the funds that we collect, and then I turn them into the office each week. I keep track of each one. So ultimately, the profits from our beverage cart it goes right back into our beverage cart. So I'm buying coffee, and I'm buying tea, I'm buying lemonade. And then the ultimate second one, we do have a loyalty card, so they can purchase a loyalty, staff can purchase a loyalty card for $5. They get 6 drinks for $5. And so one person stamps the cards, and then we have coffee and iced beverages as well. So you'll see at the top 2 pictures are students that are writing out either on a coffee sleeve or label. So I take from that order, I put it onto the yellow order forms, they then copy it over. So, and then there's our whole crew on the bottom left. So, next slide. Yep. So that's it in a nutshell. So we do have beverages for you, and so we would like to deliver those and our treat. So thanks for having us. And I'm going to pass it on. I'm sorry.
No.
Dr. Robinson.
That's okay. I think they are going to start passing out beverages. Is that correct? And we apologize. Some of the hot beverages may need to be heated up a little bit because we had them ready to go right at the very beginning of the meeting. And maybe the ice drinks got a little liquidy, but that's all right. Since they gave me a microphone, which is sometimes dangerous, Mr. Wilson, if you'd like to go to the last stage, I would like to take this opportunity to invite people or to remind people, or if you haven't heard, June 17th, we are going to be having an open house to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of what is now the junior high building. It was originally the high school. So if you are able to stop out June 17th, 1 o'clock, we're going to have current staff members and past staff members, anybody who has ever taught at the junior high, come to that time. And then at 2 o'clock, it's going to be open for public tours. And we have some great things working with the museum and different foundations and different volunteers without the community to bring some special things that were special to the high school. So if you're available and you're in town, that's the same weekend as the comedy festival. So we hope to see you all there. All right, we're going to help our students finish passing out their drinks. Thank you for having us. Any questions?
How many students are in the program?
8 students in this program.
And so are they doing this just during certain periods? Is that what it is?
They do it during second period social skills class. And so that's when we do it. We do a lot. I mean, the day before we'll prep a lot as much as we can. But I'm sorry. Oh.
So how many beverages is it usually once a week, you said?
I'd say average 20,
Oh, that's really
23.
nice. Uh-huh.
So we've had a lot of staff, and a lot of them have the loyalty card, and so they just, I let them know if they are low on their stamps. They put an extra for $5 in my mailbox, check off their name. So it's worked out really well.
Thank you for bringing your students. This is our favorite part of the meeting, as you can tell.
Yes.
We like this part.
My iced tea is still very good, so thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, we offer a bunch of different drinks. Okay. Oh, here comes Kayla. All right, ready?
So I have a 7th grader at the junior high, and she was looking over my shoulder as I was filling out my drink order form for this. And she was asking me, I said, oh, it's, from your school, Brewed Awakening. And she's like, oh, yeah, when I was in math, my teacher was so excited when her tea got delivered. So I know the teachers must appreciate the service.
I think it's nice to see we talking about we need to continue to teach the soft skills, employability, how future workers can interact with people, learning all those things. So thanks for doing that, Mary and your team and all those things, because this is definitely, we hear that feedback, teaching kids how to exist in the world of work, no matter what level it is, customer service. So good job.
Thank you very much, students. You guys did a great job. Thank you, parents, for being patient with us and helping us as well get going today. And thank you to the Board of Education for letting us come and present this today.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Okay, on with the fun. We are now to the Award of Excellence. Mrs. Bauman.
All right, fresh batteries, so I can talk for a while, huh? No, oh no. Okay, so I am here to present the Award for Excellence. For those that haven't been here for this award, 5 times a school year, I get to award a staff member with the Award for Excellence. We have a committee that goes through nominations. Our staff are nominated by their peers, by their administrators, by parents, and we go through those nominations and select the recipient 5 times out of the year. And this month, for our last recipient of the year, we have Corey Pena. Corey, come on up while we talk about you. She thought she was in trouble when I showed up in the nurse's office. That wasn't a good sign. But Corey is one of our school nurses. I'm going to give you your plaque while I read a little bit about you. Corey was nominated by one of her health techs that works in the nurse's office with her in one of her 4 schools, correct? 4 schools. Some of the comments that were made in her multiple nominations were that Corey puts in a lot of extra time and goes above and beyond what her job is to make sure that all of the students under her care are safe and well taken care of. She changes her schedule multiple times to accommodate staff and parents to have meetings, to set up care plans for students with special needs. She's firm yet caring with staff, students, and parents. And she's done a nice job at the preschool specifically of handling the amount of paperwork that goes with enrolling 240 preschool students and ensuring that they have the necessary immunizations for starting preschool. Corey was the school nurse in the building I worked at as well when I was a building principal, and she is certainly very deserving of this award. She does have several principals. I know that Mr. Lichty obviously has a few things to say.
Just very briefly, that Corey obviously is one of the few people who would be like wanting this praise. I know it makes her very uncomfortable, but it is so beyond necessary because she does a phenomenal job. Sees what, 850 kids? I'm just rough estimating 4 buildings, a lot of kids to keep track of, and anything from a boo-boo, which is a major emergency for some kids, to a broken finger, which is a major emergency for the teachers as well. So, I mean, just a great job. We appreciate everything you do and keeping track of things, keeping us informed of our student needs too, because we have a great responsibility to keep our kids safe as well. So we appreciate you and everything you've done.
Do any of her other administrators want to say anything? You don't have to, but I know several are here. She didn't necessarily want many people to speak, so that's okay. And I will let Corey say a few words if she wants to as well, but I do want to let people know that part of getting the award is not just the public recognition and the plaque, but she does get a $50 gift card that is donated from Hy-Vee for her to use personally with her family. And I think she already has a plan for the $500 that she gets to utilize in her buildings that is part of the award as well. So congratulations, Corey. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you for the kind words, and a special thank you to the other nurses and all of our health techs in the buildings. You guys are great.
Congratulations. Here's, Corey, here's a copy of your nomination. Okay. Here's your gift card.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks. You're welcome. Thank you.
Congratulations, Corey. Okay. We are to the public comments. This is the time during the meeting when the public may request to address the board. According to state law, if you wish to comment, you must identify yourself, including your address, the name of the organization you represent, and the topic that you wish to address. Public comment cards are located at the media table in the back of the room. Please pick up a card and provide the required information if you plan to speak. Each individual's comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Please note that the board cannot discuss or act upon matters that are not listed on the agenda. Therefore, board members will not respond to your comments or questions. If you wish to request that an item be placed on a future board agenda, you may contact the superintendent or her assistant during normal business hours. Also note that concerns related to school personnel need to be addressed to the superintendent using the approved district protocol. Would anybody like to speak? Yes, if you want to leave, it's a nice time to scoot out now.
My name is Kay Francavilla, and I live at 1006 Burgess Ave in Norfolk. I have 3 comments to make this evening regarding last month's Board of Education meeting. My first comment is related to the conduct of certain board members. I have served on several boards, and we have always maintained a high level of decorum, even during intense and heated discussions. I was very disappointed during last month's board meeting when I witnessed verbal attacks of one member towards other board members. It was unprofessional and unwarranted. Each of you have been duly elected, or in the case of Ms. Sasha Kant, duly selected, to serve on the school board. And the community should have confidence that each of you will behave in a manner becoming of such an important and esteemed position. My second comment is directed to those members of the board who seem to think that the Norfolk School Board must comply with the rules and procedures of the NASB, the Nebraska Association of School Boards, when in fact the NASB is an association that Norfolk Public Schools voluntarily belongs to, using taxpayer money to do so. The NPS School Board serves as the lawmaking body of our school district, not the other way around. The laws of the district are in the form of bylaws. The superintendent is the CEO of the Board of Education and shall perform such duties as assigned by the board as outlined in Policy 2110. In addition to the bylaws, NPS has its own rules and procedures as well, which are available for review by the public. At the last meeting, there was a disagreement as to whether the board members had the right to vote in opposition to the superintendent's recommendation for an important position within the schools, the principal of the high school. Under NPS's procedure manual, section 4110, it clearly states, certified employees shall be recommended by the superintendent with a final approval by the Board of Education prior to hiring. Final approval must be made by a formal motion of the Board of Education. The final approval by the Board of Education should generally follow closely the recommendation of the superintendent whenever possible, but such approval of recommendation is not mandatory on the Board of Education. If in fact the board members were required to do whatever the administration recommends they do, there would be no point in having a school board at all. As a member of this community, a taxpayer, and a concerned citizen, I believe that the school board members have the right to be involved in major decisions like selecting principals, and that they should be able to vote their conscience freely on any matter before the board without receiving verbal attacks from other members. My final comment is for Ms. Wolf and is in regards to parliamentary procedure. I would suggest that Sandy familiarize herself with Robert's Rules of Order with respect to the priority of motions. Generally, a motion, once it has been made and seconded, must be voted on before moving on. However, if a motion is made to table the previous motion until the next meeting, that motion takes priority and must be voted on before going back to the original motion. This was obviously not done at the last board meeting. In the future, I suggest that parliamentary procedure be followed more closely. Serving on the school board is an extremely important position with great responsibility, assuming board members are allowed to take that responsibility and not serve as mere figureheads. Thank you for your service, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you, Kay.
Peggy Hoffman. I'm back. I wanted to address, it comes up later in the agenda. Policy 5008 was revised. It's the policy committee also considered drafting a policy regarding students' participation in athletics based upon biological sex. This is under 9.2 policy committee report. The committee decided to wait to see if LB 575, Adopt the Sports and Spaces Act, is approved by the Nebraska legislature. LB 575 specifies that bathroom and locker room usage must be based upon students' biological sex. It also specifies that participation in sports must be based upon students' biological sex, and it states that each school must adopt a policy implementing the Sports and Spaces Act. The committee decided that it made sense to wait to see if that bill becomes law so that we may not need to rewrite or revise a policy a month after it was adopted. The policy committee intends to revisit this topic after the legislative session, regardless of whether this bill passes. I'd like to see Norfolk Public Schools be a little more progressive and make a policy. If we have to change it, we have to change it. But you asked us, the board passed 5-0 in February to contribute $400,000 to the softball complex. And the college just passed theirs in their meeting in O'Neill. I'm sure the city will come through with their $400,000. But if we're actually doing this for our female athletes so that there's parity, as President Wolf said, parity with the boys' athletics, then let's protect our female athletes. Let's do it now before the legislature needs to do anything. We're going to make a comfort station for these ladies. I'd like to protect them in those locker rooms. They don't like the boys going by jeering at them while they're changing. I don't want them in the locker room doing the same thing. I don't want them invading those girls' spaces. So please, let's get ahead of that policy instead of waiting for the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Did anyone else want to speak? Okay. We are to information and discussion items, 8.1, Finance and Facilities Report. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. The total amount of claims for the month of May by fund are listed. We also have the month of April's activity fund claims as well. All these claims were reviewed earlier today by our Finance and Facility Committee. The Nebraska Association of School Business Officials, the acronym is NASBO. We had our annual state convention on April 20th and 21st in Lincoln. The main items of discussion were current legislative bills, specifically those related to school finance. We did have discussion with NDE and implementation of the proposed legislation if passed. We shared our concerns with NDE about the slow turnaround on grant reimbursements. We just said, we need to pick that up. Some districts can't cash flow that, and that's our money. We need to get it here so we can get the interest off of it and those kinds of things. Legal updates from Perry Law Firm, KSB Law Firm, the State Auditor's Office presented, as well as the Nebraska Retirement Office. State Auditor talked about specific things that they are very focused on, some of those but not limited to, things that we are pretty strict about here, but just reemphasize what you can and cannot do with your activities fund, and just be very cognitive about that, and with specifically keeping things that are student fees into the student fee fund versus activity fund, making sure those are identified separately. MPERS, we have a lot of questions about if an employee does not retire, why they have to wait the 180 days to come back. If they have just quit working and they're not retiring, why that is in place. We are so short of subs and other people. They honestly didn't give a clean answer, so I'm on a group that we're not going to let it go right now because it doesn't make sense. But they have an attorney right now that feels that it's just easier to make it across the board statement. So, but that's not helping schools. So that's that. And then a big discussion on recruitment and retention of school business officials. Just like other areas in education, as more school business officials retire, finding qualified replacements is becoming more and more of a challenge. Some districts are maybe hiring more accountants, which serves a purpose, but if you really don't have a school background, that becomes difficult at times to function. And so our NASBO leadership team, we had a good discussion in our roundtable about some ideas that we can do help with moving forward. Some of them not limited to offering times for people to come shadow experienced business officials. What do you actually do during a day? Obviously there's monthly tasks you do, but what actually transpires, and talk about the rewarding aspects of making things work with keeping this fiscally sound, conservative approach, and making sure students are first, all those things, and making the puzzles work the best you can. So those are the things that we talked about. It was a good conference. I'll entertain any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Robinson. 8.2, teaching and learning reports. Shoot, my thing is dying.
Thank you,
Mrs.
Madam
Nelson.
President. It's pretty simple this month. We're nearing the end of our spring statewide assessment window, so my office has been tracking to be sure all students have completed the required assessments. Our time is being filled up at the end of the year, meetings to wrap up items for 22-23, and then start making plans for 23-24. The end of the year tasks for our grant responsibilities are complete, and submissions for the end of the year reports are gradually coming in.
Thanks, Beth. 8.3, student programs report. Mrs. Lure.
Thank you, Madam President. In the month of May, I'm meeting with the staff from each program. We're finalizing the end of the year procedures as well as paperwork for our future needs. Just a friendly reminder that our completion ceremony will be held this Wednesday at 3 p.m. at the Johnny Carson Theater. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mary. 8.4, student services report. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, Madam President. We've been busy working on grant applications this past month, thanks to Callan Collins and the NPS Foundation for their help with the grant application that supports our Panther Pack program for next year. Dr. Robinson and I have also wrapped up the School Violence Prevention Program grant to help with the cost of some of our safety goal improvements. I will keep the board updated as I hear more on those. Also, as Dr. Thompson already mentioned, handbooks are getting close to ready for board review. We just have to see if there's any more legislative changes that will need to be added, and then drafts will be shared with you. That's some fun reading there for you. And then finally, I just listed some upcoming dates to remember. 21st is graduation at 2 o'clock. 23rd is the end of the school year for students. 24th is the last day for staff. And then we start back at it with summer school on the 31st for high school, and K-8 starts on June 5th for summer school. Any questions?
Here, whether we got the grant for the school violence prevention.
We actually, I think we're submitting that one tomorrow, and so I'm going to ask that question after we submit that one. I can let you know.
Positive to Mr. Wilson. He wrote some really strong narratives. I think we have a really good grant application, so I'm hoping it's going to be reviewed, and
How much did you ask for?
The full amount, $500,000.
How much is available?
Well, each school can only get $500,000, and there's a couple million out there.
Thanks, Eric. 8.5, human resources and accreditation. Mrs. Baumann.
Thank you, Madam President. We have filled many of our teaching positions for the 23-24 school year. Our current openings are listed below, and we will continue to search for qualified candidates. There is also a second grade position that I'm not sure why I omitted, but otherwise that is our list that we are currently trying to fill.
Thanks, Angie. 8.6, superintendent's report.
Thank you. If you could go to the attachment, Mr. Wilson. I have a report on our enrollment. As you know, prior to the pandemic, March 2020, Norfolk Public Schools enrollment was steadily increasing. We had a nice, steady trend of increasing enrollment. However, we lost 135 students, or 3% of our student population, from September 1 of 2019 to September 1 of 2020. We regained 45 of those students from September 1 of 2020 to September 1 of 2021, and another 66 students from September 1, 2021 to September 1, 2022. However, at the beginning of this school year, we were still down 26 students from before the pandemic. I am happy to report, though, that at this point, we have recovered those 26 students, and we have now surpassed our pre-pandemic enrollment as demonstrated in the chart below. Although our student enrollment varies monthly due to our above-average student mobility rate, we have had an upward trend since that initial pandemic drop, and we're now above our pre-pandemic enrollment level of 4,531. With our enrollment sitting at an all-time high, it is my recommendation that we begin conversations with RSP Associates regarding a comprehensive enrollment study to determine whether we need to consider the possibility of a bond issue to increase space and capacity at the senior high school. RSP and Associates is a professional educational planning firm that utilizes a much more sophisticated and robust forecasting model that analyzes not only student enrollment data, but other factors such as building permits, subdivision life cycles, anticipated housing development projects, sensing data, etc., to provide highly accurate enrollment projections. Overall, their projection rate accuracy is above 97%. Are there any questions?
Which would that RSP study cost?
We would need to look into that, but I believe that last time we had one, it was around $12,000. But $12,000 is a small percentage of what a bond issue could potentially run, and we want to make sure that if we do something, that it is actually needed.
Why do you think we have an above average mobility? Any ideas?
I honestly don't know. I mean, we have students that move in and out of the district quite a bit, and also within our district as well, from one school area to another. I don't know that I can really give you a rationale for that exactly.
This may be premature, but what improvements would we be looking at? Are we talking facility? Are we talking adding on? Where's your brain?
Well, I mean, if we decided to go down that road, we would definitely get input from the board and from the public. But what we're looking at in terms of enrollment is additional classroom space. We already have some teachers who are sharing classrooms. If our enrollment continues to grow, that could become problematic. So we would at least be looking at additional classroom space. I think there are some other areas we may want to consider addressing at the same time. For instance, we know that our lunch area is not big enough to accommodate all of our students, even with 3 lunch periods. If all students stayed there, we have to use the gym and other areas to make that happen. We have a little theater that is antiquated with desks that don't work anymore, that type of thing. We've wanted to address that for a long time. I'm sure we could get a long list, but then we would have to prioritize that as a board with public input to decide what that actually entailed. And Lindsay would want to build a new school.
I went to new high school. This is my newness, but RSP and Associates, we've used them before, and where are they out of?
They're out of Kansas City, and we came upon them. A couple of the architects in Nebraska recommended them because they used them as they did bond servicing. DLRs are an example. They use them all the time. They did the Columbus project, and they've done other ones. So we reached out, and they gave a presentation. I honestly was pretty impressed with the information they gave, because on our pre-pandemic, when we were ready to go out with the public meetings on, they provided all the things that the public need to hear as far as, okay, how did you get to this number? Why do you think this? And, I think their track record was good. And when you talk to others within Nebraska, that name comes up all the time as far as a company that has done their service work. So they can go a lot farther than just the basic thing we're looking at, but I don't know if we would need that than what we're looking for.
They could also at the same time look at our elementary school boundaries, because as our population shifts, Mr. Strong left, but we are seeing more students in the Woodland Park area, so we may need to change our elementary boundaries as well, and so that could be a part of that study as well. But right now, we would just be talking about very initial conversations. I'm not sure if they would want to do it this summer or wait until after our official count in September. So I think they would have good input on what the best timing is for that.
They had done it once before, but they did not tell us about the pandemic. All of that was done.
Thank you.
Okay, committee reports, 9.1, facilities and finance. Brenda Carhart.
Committee met today at noon. The claims of the month of May and activity claims were reviewed. Other items reviewed and discussed: the RFP review for motor coach bus service, review of proposed meal prices for next year, review contract extension for 1 year with LSI, who provides our meals. And then we project updates, saw pictures of the new Bel Air gym, the junior high, and the junior high track. And then we just briefly talked about the initial review of the budget timeline for next year. And the next meeting will be June 12th, again at noon. Any questions?
Thank you, Brenda. 9.2 is the committee report policy. Lindsay Dixon.
The Policy Committee met on April 27, 2023. We reviewed a group of board policies that must be reviewed annually according to state statutes. Those policies include 5008, student attendance, 5414, anti-bullying, 5417, school wellness, 6370, multicultural education, 6400, parental community involvement in schools, and 6410, Title I, parent and family engagement. Policy 5008 was revised so that excessive absenteeism for both elementary and secondary students is based upon daily attendance rather than period attendance for secondary students. No other changes were made to these policies. They are recommended for the first round approval. The Policy Committee also considered drafting a policy regarding students' participation in athletics based upon biological sex. The committee decided to wait to see if LB 575, Adopt the Sports and Space Act, is approved by the Nebraska legislature. LB 575 specifies the bathroom and locker room usage must be based upon students' biological sex. It also specifies that participation in sports must be based upon students' biological sex. And it states that each school must adopt a policy implementing the Sports and Space Act. The committee decided that it made sense to wait to see if the bill becomes a law, so that we would not need to rewrite or revise a policy a month after it was adopted. The Policy Committee intends to revisit the topic after the legislative session, regardless of whether this bill passes.
Thank you, Lindsay. 9.3, government relations. Cindy Booth.
The Government Relations Committee has not met since our April board meeting. However, committee members have been actively monitoring the legislative session.
Do you know LB 575 then? Has that come along, or what's the status of that?
We have not heard anything in the last few weeks, but it appeared that it was very likely that it would pass.
It'll be over, the session will be over, everything will be decided by, what's the date, June?
It's like the first week in June, so next month.
Thank you, Cindy. 9.4 is Norfolk Public Schools Foundation report. Brenda Carhart.
The Foundation Board of Directors met on Monday, April 17th at the junior high. 13 board members were present. The board reviewed the meeting minutes from March and the financial reports, including the quarterly investment report. President Metka Combe shared with the board that an update regarding the hiring of a new executive director for the foundation. The hiring committee completed the interview and an offer was extended to Austin Truex. Austin has accepted this position, will start in May on a part-time basis, and will complete the onboarding process with Kellen Collins and the board. And then he starts full-time July 1st. Also mentioned was the current scholarship selection process and the foundation's participation in Honors Night on May 18th. In addition, classroom grant applications are currently being accepted for next year. So that's in the process, and scholarships have been picked and awarded, and those will go out be announced on May 18th. So it's been a busy time for the foundation, but we're giving away a lot of money. That's what we like.
Thank you, Brenda. Okay, we're moving on to the consent agenda. 10.1 is the minutes of the previous meeting. 10th and 27th school board meetings are attached. 10.2 is personnel and the contract approval. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. We have 3 contracts for your consideration this evening. Laura Peters, social studies teacher for Norfolk Senior High. Blake Walkenfuss, assistant principal for Norfolk Senior High, and Jackie Ruziska, industrial technology teacher for Norfolk Junior High.
She's an art teacher and a industrial technology teacher?
She is actually not endorsed in industrial technology, but they have worked closely together, and Dr. Jen Robinson feels confident that she would be able to teach those courses. We did not have any industrial technology applicants.
She's going to be an art teacher and an industrial?
No, she would just be an industrial technology teacher for us.
Okay, so then we'll have to find an art teacher to replace.
No, she's not an art teacher for us now.
Oh,
She
okay.
was from 2011 to 2021.
Yeah, you're right. I'm wrong. It's
And 10.3 is claims, Dr. Robinson?
Yes, attached are the claims for the month of May. As stated earlier, these were reviewed by our Finance Facility Committee. There is a conflict statement for this month that will need to be read before voting.
Is there a motion for the consent agenda items?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Beth and a second by Brenda. Is there any discussion? I do have a conflict statement to read. Out of an abundance of caution, I hereby declare a potential conflict of interest, and I'm abstaining from voting on Claim 916 for the month of May in the consent agenda for this meeting. I've signed and filed this written disclosure with the Secretary of the Board. It is my intent to vote on all other remaining items listed on the consent agenda. My vote on the remainder of the consent items should not be taken as a vote one way or the other on the items which I've identified or any of the matters set forth therein or related thereto. This is from when I went to the, what's it called? Nebraska? GNSA, Greater Nebraska Activity. Please vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Thank you. I'm like, Callan, thank you. It just, sorry. Action items, 11.1, discuss, consider, and approve the resignation of Candace Schmidt. Dr. Thompson.
Yes, Candace Schmidt, our district communications director, has submitted her resignation to be effective May 30th, 2023.
I'll make a motion to approve the resignation of Candace Schmidt, Communications Director, effective May 30th, 2023.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion by Terry and a second by Cindy. Is there discussion?
Thank her for her time. I think she's done good, and I've liked the posts on Facebook of all the cute kids at Norfolk Public Schools. So, thank you.
Please vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Thank you, Callan. 11.2, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the first reading of the board policies. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. As stated during Lindsay Dixon's policy report, we did make a small change to policy 5008, but no other changes have been made to these policies.
Is there a motion? Yes.
I make a motion to approve the first reading of board policies 5008, 5415, 5417, 6400, 6410, 6370.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Lindsay and a second by Beth. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried, 6-0.
Thank you, Callan. 11.3, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the 2023-2024 school meal prices. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. Attached are the recommended school meal prices for 23-24. All the prices for student meals will remain the same. There is a 5-cent increase on milk, and that's if a student buys an extra milk, and a 20-cent increase on the adult breakfast and adult lunch prices. And I want to point out, we've had the same meal prices since before the pandemic, so I think that's a good thing. And the nutrition fund is able to fund this. This is not general fund tax dollars. It's a self-sustaining fund. So
I'll make a motion to approve the 2023-24 school meal prices.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion by Terry and a second by Cindy. Is there any other discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Callan, 11.4, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the RFP for 2023-2024 charter bus services. Dr. Robinson.
thank you. Attached for review is the proposed RFP for the charter bus services for 23-24 school year. This is the option approved at our last board meeting and will be a one-year-only contract in order to provide the district with additional data to determine if this course of action is in our best interest for students and staff. It will also provide us with data on the short and long-term financial impact this type of service agreement would have. If the RFP is approved, the process will begin immediately with a recommendation for a contract with a vendor at the June board meeting. So we would have RFPs due to the business office by May 22nd. We will do an interview with a committee of potential vendors who submit on the 24th, and then have recommendation brought to that June board meeting the 13th.
I'll make a motion to approve the motor coach services RFP 23-24.
And I'll second.
We have a motion by Terry and a second by Lindsay. Is there any discussion? I think you guys probably all read that, but it's for any trips over 75 miles. Otherwise, we'll use our own fleets, just for clarification. So, please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Callan, 11.5, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the renewal of our agreement with LSI for 23-24 as our food management company. Dr. Robinson.
Thank you. This is a request for a one-year fixed price contract extension with LSI, that's Lunchtime Solutions, for our food management company. Contract extensions can occur for up to 4 years, and then rebidding the service must occur according to state policy. This would be the second year of this 4-year agreement. This contract went through the formal bidding 2 years ago.
I'll make a motion to approve the renewal of our agreement with LSI for 23-24 as our food management company.
I can second that motion.
We have a motion by Brenda and a second by Cindy. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you, Callan. And 11.6, discuss, consider, and take action to approve the second and final reading of Board Policies 7,000 through 7052 related to major construction. Dr. Thompson.
Thank you. We have not made any changes to these policies since their first reading at our April board meeting. These policies are recommended for second and final reading.
I'll make a motion to approve the second and final reading of Board Policies 7,000 through 7,052 related to major construction.
I'll second the motion.
We have a motion by Brenda and a second by Beth. Is there any discussion?
Just when we went through these are, we have to follow these because of federal guidelines and state guidelines, so there's not a lot of discussion or changing available even in these policies because we've got to follow what they tell us to do as a nonprofit.
Please vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
Thank you, Callan. That brings us to the end. The second monthly meeting of the Board of Education has been tentatively scheduled for noon on Thursday, May 25th, 2023. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Monday, June 12th 2023, and will begin at 5:30. There will not be study session during the summer months, so the meetings will be right here and start at 5:30. All components of these meetings will be held at the Norfolk Public Schools Central Administration Offices and will be open to the public unless an executive session is needed in order to protect the interest of the district or the reputation of an individual. Meeting adjourned.